She poured wine at his feet. He smiled. 200 nobles laughed. No one saw the goblet the blonde princess pressed into his hand. No one saw him fall, an alpha king, a poisoned throne, a curse only true love can break before the moon rises twice. A rival kingdom waiting at the border. A blood oath sworn in silver. The housemaid opens a locked box beside his bed. Inside her grandmother's comb, her portrait. 7 years of letters, never sent. Her hand shakes. He kept everything. Wolves howl, steel drawn in the king's chamber. A foreign princess in the doorway, guards bleeding. The clock striking noon, his heartbeat slowing. She leans down, whispers, "Wake up, I love you." They called me a rake, a hound in silk. The kind of king mothers warned their daughters about while quietly hoping he would notice them anyway. None of it was true. Well, some of it. The silk part, but the rest? A story I built slow. In the small hours, in the long afternoons, in every corridor where I made sure the wrong servant overheard the wrong sentence. Until the court believed it. Until the crown believed it. Until 7 kingdoms whispered my name over morning tea and evening wine, and clinked glasses at the sound of my scandals. Everyone believed it, except her. The ballroom that night glittered like something out of a fever dream. 200 candles, 1,000 jewels. Every noble daughter within riding distance polished into a marble version of herself, silk trailing across the floor. Perfume thick enough to choke a horse. Laughter that was mostly performance. And me, center of it. Smiling like I meant it. I did not mean it, because somewhere in that flood of gowns and titles and hopeful glances, a girl in gray was on her knees, scrubbing a wine stain out of my grandmother's floor, Alara Whitmore. 22 years old. Auburn curls she never bothered to fix. Freckles across her nose she thought made her look plain. A tongue that could cut a man in half at 10 paces. And she hated me, at least. That was the story we had both agreed to tell. 7 years I had been letting her. Have you ever had to hide the biggest love of your life, just because the world would not let it exist? That is the question I have been asking myself since the summer I turned 19. That is the question I have been answering with every rumor, with every noblewoman on my arm, with every wink and every dimple and every carefully rehearsed piece of gossip I have fed to the maids to spread through the servant halls, because a king who is in love is a king with a weakness, and a king with a weakness is a king with a target painted on the throat of the woman he loves. I learned that lesson at 19. I have not forgotten it since. I was the last of my line. Only son, mother buried by the time I was 10. Father in the ground 4 years now, though the shape of him still moved through the palace at night, the way old dogs move through a house they used to own. My uncles wanted things from me. My council wanted things from me. My generals wanted things from me. And every one of those things was a piece of the woman I loved, though none of them knew it. They thought I was cruel because I would not marry. They thought I was vain because I would not settle. They thought I was a boy still. At 26, I let them think it. Because a boy is not a threat. A boy is not a target. A boy is a problem you postpone until next year, and next year, and next year again. A boy is a king who keeps his throne by being underestimated. And underneath the boy, invisible to every ambassador who kissed my ring, invisible to every duke who watched my hands at dinner, invisible to every priest who prayed for my soul on Sunday mornings, there was a man. The man loved Alara Whitmore. The man had loved her since she was 17 years old and had come into the stable yard on a summer morning with mud on her elbow and hay in her hair, and had told the master of horses, without so much as a glance in my direction, that the bay mare was pregnant and that no one had noticed. The master of horses had not noticed. I had not noticed. Alara had walked past a stall for 3 seconds and had known. That was the morning my father caught us laughing. That was the morning everything that came after came from. The man loved her. The boy pretended not to, and the boy was very, very convincing. The first princess of the night was from the Western Isles, blonde, perfumed within an inch of her life, 15 minutes of my time. She talked about horses. I nodded. I smiled. I twirled her under my arm at exactly the moment the string quartet expected me to. My eyes never once left the corner of the room where Alara worked. She never looked up, which was fine, which was the game, because Alara looking up meant Alara pretending not to see me. And Alara pretending not to see me was the closest thing to a love letter I had received in 7 years. The second princess wanted to talk about her father's wine imports. The third about her embroidery. The fourth about a horse she had also once owned. Apparently, because horses were what these women thought a king wanted to hear about at his own engagement ball. None of them mentioned the coronation. None of them mentioned the eastern border. None of them mentioned the crops that had failed near the river valley last autumn, or the tax reforms my council had been arguing over for 6 months. Alara would have. Alara would have led with it. Alara would have said something like, "Nice ball, Cedric. Shame about the grain shortage. Are we starving the peasants on purpose now? Or is that just a happy accident?" Alara would have looked me in the eye when she said it. That is what I loved about her. That is what I had loved about her since I was 19 years old, and she was 17, and my father caught us laughing together in the stable yard. I remember the fountain. I remember it because it is the only memory of Alara I have that predates the lie. We were children. She was 10 and I was 12. My mother was still alive. Her grandmother was still the royal healer. Our two households ran together like two streams that had forgotten which one had started upstream. There was a fountain in the eastern garden. Cracked stone, a statue of some queen from 4 generations back, whose name nobody remembered. Green water. Frogs. I put a snake in Alara's bed. I still cannot tell you why. Because I was 12, probably. Because I wanted her to see me, probably. Because I did not have the words to say, "Look at me, I would follow you into the woods if you had asked." She did not scream. She was not that kind of girl. She took the snake out of her bed. She carried it in her cupped hands. She hunted me down through 3 corridors and 2 gardens, and she threw it at me at the edge of the fountain. I ducked. I laughed. I lost my footing on the wet stone, and I fell backward into the green water with the frogs. She was so surprised she fell in after me. We sat there in the fountain. Both of us, soaked. Both of us, breathless. Both of us 12 and 10 years old. And she said, "If you ever put a snake in my bed again, I will marry you just to make your life miserable." I said, "Then I will put a snake in your bed every night." She did not laugh. She looked at me, and she said, very seriously, "Promise?" I promised. I have been keeping that promise ever since. Only the snake changed. Now it was rumors and dimples and princesses and wine on the floor. Sometimes I wonder if she remembers. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about that fountain the way I do. Sometimes I lie awake in the dark, and I imagine her lying awake, too. And I imagine her hearing the same word I hear, Pasina. There was another memory I did not let myself have too often. It came late at night when I had been drinking, or early in the morning when I had not slept. And it always came with the same picture: her grandmother's hut, a candle, a wooden bowl on the floor, a basin of steaming water, and Alara, 16, small, feverish, pale, wrapped in a rough blanket, and me, 18, sitting on the stone step outside, because she had told me not to come in, and coming in anyway. Her grandmother had put my hand on her forehead. She was that sick. Her grandmother had said, "Boy, keep your hand there, and do not move it until I tell you to move it." I had kept my hand there for 4 hours. I had not moved it once. I had not known until 3 years later, on the night her grandmother died, that Alara had been awake for every minute of those 4 hours. She had never told me. I had never asked. That was our romance. That was the shape of us for 17 years. Silence and the memory of a hand on a fever. The 5th princess would have been unremarkable. I made an excuse. Something about needing to speak with my steward. I peeled myself off the dance floor. I crossed the ballroom in what I hoped looked like a casual drift, and was in fact the straightest line I had walked in years. Alara heard me coming. Of course she did. Her ears were better than any hound in my kennel. She did not turn around. Whatever it is, my king, the answer is no. You have not heard the question. I do not need to. The answer is still no, Alara, Cedric. You are supposed to call me your majesty in public. You are supposed to be dancing with a princess in public. Neither of us is doing what we are supposed to be doing. Tonight, are we? She still had not turned around, which was the whole game. Because if she turned around, I would see her face. And if I saw her face, she would see mine. And if she saw mine, she would know. She would know that I had spent 7 years walking past her doorway at midnight, that I had found excuses to be in the corridor where she polished silver, that I had asked my valet, in the most casual tone I could muster, whether she had eaten dinner, whether she had slept, whether the winter had been hard on her. Off. She could not know, because knowing meant danger, so I did not tell her. So I stood behind her in the corner of my own ballroom. So I said the only thing I could safely say, you missed a spot. She turned then, slowly. Auburn curl on her cheek, eyes green like river water in spring. I missed a spot, on the floor, where you were scrubbing. There is still a stain, Your Majesty. Are you telling me, in front of 200 witnesses, that I do not know how to scrub a floor? I am telling you the floor has a stain on it. She smiled then, small, wolfish. The smile I had loved since I was 15, and she was 13. And we had thrown mud at each other, in the herb garden, until her grandmother chased us both out with a broom. Then it is a good thing the king of this castle has such fine wine. So I can have a reason to keep scrubbing, and before I could stop her, she reached across a passing tray. She lifted a glass. She poured it, deliberately, onto the marble at my feet. The floor drank the wine like it had been thirsty. She curtsied. Barely, I will fetch a cloth, Your Majesty. Do not move a muscle. I did not move a muscle. I could not have moved if the castle had caught fire around me, because she had done that in front of 200 witnesses. And every one of them was going to remember it. And by tomorrow the story would be that I had reprimanded the maid, and the maid had defied me, and the king had let her get away with it because the king could not control the women in his own household, which was true, which was the whole point, which was why I had let her do it. I would have let her burn the ballroom down. I would have handed her the torch. Some men build cathedrals for the women they love. I let Alara Whitmore throw wine on my feet in public. It was the only love letter I was allowed to sign. She came back with a cloth. She knelt again. I stood over her. And for the 11 seconds it took her to sop up the wine, we did not speak. We did not touch. And I did not breathe. That was our romance. That was the entire language of the last 7 years. 11 seconds of silence over a puddle of red wine. I did not deserve those 11 seconds. I had not earned them. I had spent years teaching myself not to want them. And still, when they came, I stood over her and drank them the way a man dying of thirst drinks from a stranger's cup. She rose. She smiled at me the way she smiled at feral cats. She was about to boot out of the pantry, and she walked away. And I did what I always did. I turned. I found the nearest noblewoman. I asked her to dance. Her name was Lady Isolde. She was blonde and she was hopeful, smelled like violets, and I smiled at her exactly the way the rumor demanded. Over Isolde's shoulder, Alara watched me for half a second. Then she looked away. That was the language too. That was how I said, I know you are watching. That was how she said, I know you know. The music changed. Isolde curtsied. I bowed. I released her hand. I stepped away from the dance floor. And I told myself, as I had told myself every night for 7 years, that this had to be enough, that a stolen glance across a room was a whole meal for a man who had trained himself to survive on crumbs. Somewhere behind me, near the servant door, Alara was already picking up her rag and her bucket and moving to the next stain. Somewhere behind her, Lady Beatrix Halloran was already reaching for a fresh goblet from a passing tray. I did not see either of them do it, I was busy being the king everybody expected me to be. That was the last full breath I would take as that man. The floor was fine now. Alara was gone from my line of sight, and Lady Beatrix Halloran was crossing the ballroom toward me, with a fresh goblet of wine in her hand. I had turned her father down for a marriage negotiation 3 months earlier. Politely, in writing, with a small gift of horses to soften the refusal. I had not thought about her since. She was smiling, that coached smile, that practiced smile. The smile of a girl whose mother had drilled her in front of a mirror for 6 weeks. Her hand was trembling. I noticed the tremble the way I notice everything. I have been trained since childhood to notice hands. Hands are where poison lives. Hands are where daggers come from. Hands are where love and murder both begin. I did not think at the time that Beatrix's hand meant murder. I thought it meant she was nervous. I was a fool, Your Majesty, Lady Beatrix. I brought you a drink. To apologize. For being so forward earlier. You were not forward. I felt I was. Then I forgive you. She held out the goblet. Her lips were slightly parted. Her chest was rising and falling too fast, like a woman about to jump into cold water. I noted that too. I filed it. I did not act on it, because in the corner of the ballroom, Alara had come back. Alara was standing near the servant door with a fresh tray in her hands. Alara was pretending not to watch. Alara was watching so hard her jaw had gone tight. And I, God help me, I wanted to make her jealous. So I took the drink. I looked Beatrix in the eye. I smiled the smile the rumors demanded of me. I brought the goblet to my lips, and I drank. The wine was sweeter than it should have been. That was the first thing I noticed. The second thing was that Beatrix had stopped breathing. The third thing was that my knees had stopped working. There was no pain. That was the worst part. There is a story you tell yourself as a king about what poison feels like. You imagine this of fire. You imagine choking. You imagine the world telling you clearly and loudly that you are dying so that you can do something dignified about it. There was none of that. There was only the wine. And then a slow, warm weight, like a heavy cloak, being lowered onto my shoulders from behind. And then the goblet slipping out of my hand. I heard it hit the marble. I did not feel my fingers let go. The ballroom went sideways. The candles doubled. The music warped. Beatrix's smile had frozen into something that was no longer a smile at all. I saw her hand come up to her mouth. I saw her eyes go wide. She had not expected it to work. That was what her face said. That was what I read across her mouth in the second and the last sex before my own eyes stopped focusing. She had not expected the wine to do what it was doing. Which meant she had not been the one who understood what was in it, which meant somebody else had told her it was harmless, which meant somebody else had lied to her. I filed that too. I filed everything. I had been filing my whole life. It was the only thing I still knew how to do. I thought, Beatrix, you are a terrible actress. I thought, Alara. I turned my head. I do not know how. The muscles in my neck were already going soft. But I turned my head, and across the ballroom, through a haze that was already thickening, I saw her. Alara had dropped her tray. Alara was already moving. She was fast. She was pushing through the crowd like a wolf through wheat. And she was calling my name, and I could not hear her over the roaring in my own ears, but I could see her mouth make the shape of it. Cedric, not Your Majesty. Cedric, 7 years. And she called me Cedric in front of 200 witnesses. That was the last thing I saw before the ballroom tilted the rest of the way over and the marble came up to meet me. I hit the floor. Or something did. My body, I think. I could not feel it hit. Then hands. Small hands. Warm. Under my head. Lifting. Cedric. Cedric, stay with me. Cedric, please. I wanted to say, I have been staying with you for 7 years, my darling. I have been staying with you every minute of every day since you were 17. I have never once left. I have only ever pretended. I could not say anything. My mouth was not mine anymore. Her face swam above me, her curls falling loose. A tear caught on her lower lash. The freckles, she thought, made her plain. I thought, if this is the last thing I see, it is enough. And then, right at the edge of the dark, one more thing broke through. Because before the world closed all the way, I heard my own steward Win, from 10 feet away, make a sound I had never heard him make in all the years I had known him. A sound like a man watching a house he had spent his life inside catch fire in a single breath. Win was weeping. Win, who had presided over 3 royal funerals with a face carved out of oak, was weeping in the middle of my ballroom. That was the moment I understood, in the last honest thought I would have for a long time, that this was not a fainting spell, that this was not something the healer would fix with a cool cloth and a stern word. This was the trap. Somebody had walked a trap through my front door tonight and had let a nervous girl carry it to my hand, and I had drunk from it because I had wanted a woman I could not touch to look at me a little longer across a room. I had done this to myself. That was the last honest thought. Then the world went black. I came back slowly, not all the way, not to the light, not to my own eyes, but I came back. I could hear. That was the first thing I understood, and it took me what felt like an hour to understand it. My eyes were closed. My body was somewhere I could not find. But I could hear, and I was not dead. Or if I was, death sounded a great deal like the ballroom of my own castle, full of shouting. Somebody was screaming about assassins. Somebody was demanding an ambassador. Somebody was crying. Alara was giving orders. That is what pulled me back into myself. That is what I latched onto. Because Alara was giving orders to a captain of my guard, and the captain of my guard was obeying her. And Alara was a housemaid. Lawrence. Get everybody back. Nobody leaves, Lawrence. New guard. 6 months in the palace. Did not know Alora's face yet. That was going to change tonight, I thought, and the small, dry joke of thinking, it kept me from falling back down into the dark. Godfrey. Where is Captain Godfrey? Somebody find him. Somebody find Madame Odelia. Do not touch the goblet. Nobody touched the goblet. That is evidence. That is a piece of evidence, Win. Do you hear me? Hands off. Win was still weeping. I heard him. I heard him sniffling like a boy who had dropped a plate. Win. I could not remember Win ever crying. Win had been a stone at every funeral I had ever attended in this palace. His Majesty. Oh no, Win. Focus. Get the goblet. But he is breathing. Master Win. Look at him. He is breathing. Get the goblet. He was right. I was breathing. I could not feel my chest move. But I could hear it, just barely. A slow, thick breath, like a man asleep after a hard day of harvest. I was not dead. I was somewhere worse than dead. I was inside a body that was refusing me, panic. That is the word for what climbed up the inside of me then. Panic like nothing I had ever felt in battle, in council, in the long, slow years of watching my father die. Because in battle you could run, in council you could speak. In watching my father die, you could at least hold his hand. Here, there was nothing to hold, nothing to run, nothing to say. There was only Alara's voice cutting through the noise, and my ears attached to it, like a drowning man to a rope. Then a new voice. You, girl. Step back from His Majesty. Lawrence. Alara's answers was flat as a chopping block. Do not be stupid, Lawrence. It is me. Sorry, Miss Whitmore. Captain's orders. Then you may tell Captain Godfrey where he can shove his orders, which was Alara, which was every word of Alara, which meant the world had not ended after all. I tried to smile. My face did not move. Then Beatrix started talking. It is not what you think. He is going to be fine. He is going to be perfectly fine. Fine. Was that the word she used? Fine. Alara's voice sharpened to a knife edge. You gave him that drink. You handed him the goblet. Yes, I did. But you poisoned the king. I did not. I did not poison him. I promise. It is not. Then what is it, Lady Beatrix? What is it exactly? There was a pause. A ballroom full of 200 people. And I could hear the pause the way you hear a heart skip. It is a love potion. Silence, then chaos. 200 people finding their voices at once. Somebody shouting about arrest. Somebody shouting about magic. Somebody shouting about their ambassador. A duchess weeping. A princess demanding to know if this counted as being engaged, and underneath all of it, Alara, a love potion. Beatrix was crying now. I could hear the wet in her voice. He will wake. He will wake, I promise, he will wake. When, Lady Beatrix? When will he wake? When he is kissed? By the woman he truly loves. I would like to tell you that in that moment I laughed. I did not laugh. My mouth was still not mine. But somewhere inside the dark box of my body, some old part of me that could not be poisoned did the closest thing to laughing that a man in a coma can do. Because that was it. That was the punchline. That was the entire 7-year joke of my life, summed up in one sentence. Said by a girl who had drugged me because she thought I loved her. The woman I truly loved was 5 feet away. The woman I truly loved was holding my head in her lap. The woman I truly loved had just called me Cedric in front of 200 witnesses. All she had to do was lean down. She would not. I knew she would not. I had spent 7 years teaching her not to. I had built a wall between us with my own 2 hands, and now that wall was going to keep me sleeping until it killed me. Well done, Cedric. Well played. You clever fool. The healer came then. Madame Odelia. I knew her by the way she moved. She was a small woman, quick as a squirrel, and she was already kneeling beside me by the time she spoke. Move, give me air. Girl, your hand on his neck, is that a pulse? Yes, steady, slow how, half of usual. Maybe less, skin, cool. Not cold, lip, pink. He is not dying. Alara's exhale was the loudest sound in the room. I wanted to tell her, I love you. I wanted to tell her, thank you for being the one to check my pulse. I wanted to tell her, please do not let go of my head. She did not let go of my head. Madame Odelia bent close. I could smell her herbs. Rosemary, bitter root, something sharper. Her breath was a whistle's. This is not any potion I know. Girl, Beatrix, come here, come here. Now, Beatrix came. I heard her feet. Where did you get it? I cannot say. You will say. You will say to me in this room right now, or I will call for the questioner. And the questioner will not ask you politely. Silence. Then a man's voice, smooth, foreign. An accent I knew and had trusted once, Madame. Perhaps we might all take a breath. The lady is in shock, Draven. Lord Emmerich Draven. Ambassador from the Kingdom of Weston, who had eaten at my table 19 nights this season and complimented my wine, my counsel, my hunting dogs, and once, at length, my choice of boots. Draven, who 3 months ago had brought me a proposal of marriage from his king's daughter, Princess Marjorie, which I had declined. Politely, in writing, with a small gift of horses, Draven. I could not see his face, but I could hear the way his voice shaped the room, and I could feel the way Beatrix went silent when he spoke. She had not gotten the potion alone. She had not planned this alone. Beatrix Halloran, I thought. You are not a poisoner. You are a puppet. I filed it. I could not do anything with it. I filed it anyway. Madame Odelia was not fooled. Madame Odelia had been in my grandmother's service before Draven had been born. Lord Ambassador. Kindly. Step. Back. He stepped back. She worked on me. Fingers on the pulse in my throat. A hand on my forehead. A whisper of oil under my nose. My eyelids twitched, or she twitched them. One and then the other, checking for the color underneath. Bring me the goblet. Alara moved. I felt her leave. I felt her come back. Odelia sniffed. Once. Twice. She said a word I did not know. In a tongue I did not know. In a voice that was suddenly not a healer's voice, but something older, like frost cracking on a lake at midnight. Then she said, in the common tongue, and quite clearly, oh. Then she said, oh no, Alara's voice again. Tight. Very tight now. Oh what? Oh no what? Madame? Speak, Madame Odelia spoke. This is not just a sleeping potion. This is night bloom. Refined. Distilled. Weston work. Old work. Cruel work. He has been drugged with a spell that mimics true love's sleep. Yes. But if he is not woken? If he is not woken when? 12 hours. He drank at 10. It is now near 11. We have from tonight until morning after next. 1 noon. That is all. Or he does not wake at all. The room did something then that I have never heard a room do. It went silent all at once. and then it began to hum like a beehive that had been kicked. 200 voices climbing over each other. My steward Wynne openly sobbing. A princess screaming. Alara said nothing. I could feel her hands on my head. I could feel them trembling now, and I could feel her thumb, small and warm, tracing a slow, private line across my temple. That was the closest thing to a kiss she ever given me. That was the closest thing to a kiss I had ever received in my adult life, and it was not enough. Or the spell would have broken then, and it did not. She whispered, very close to my ear, so that only I could hear, "You idiot. You absolute idiot. Do not you dare die on me. Do not you dare." I would have laughed. If I could have. I would have opened my eyes and said, "My love, my darling, my whole heart. I have been trying not to die on you for 7 years. I could only listen. I listened as Alara stood. I listened as she gave orders again. To captains, to stewards, to healers, to a room full of foreign nobles who a moment ago would not have taken bread from her hand. I listened as she said, "And I will remember this until I am gray and toothless. Then we will wake him. Move, everyone. Move. We are going to wake the king." And underneath the panic, underneath the shouting, underneath the slow, steady drum of my own borrowed heartbeat, I thought about my father. I thought about King Osric Ravenmoor. Dead these 4 years, buried in the crypt below this very ballroom. I thought about the night he had cornered me in his study when I was 19. I thought about the way he had looked at me across the desk. Not angry. Worse than angry. Disappointed in the very particular way a king is disappointed. In a son who has fallen in love with the wrong girl. A common girl. A healer's granddaughter. No land, no dowry, no blood. And she is what you propose to bring to the throne. She is not common. She is nothing common. She is everything to you. She is, then Cedric. Listen to me very carefully. I will not allow it. Not while I draw breath. And if I hear one more word of this girl from your mouth, if I see you look at her one more time the way you looked at her this morning in the yard, she will vanish from this palace. Do you understand me? Vanish. And no one will find her. And I will make sure you never find her either. I had gone very still. You would not. I have done worse things for smaller reasons. Do not test me. I did not test him. I did the only thing a boy of 19 can do when his father has just put a price on the head of the girl he loves. I lied. I lied with every muscle in my face. I said, I will forget her. It was foolish. It was a passing thing. Forgive me. He had not believed me. Not entirely. That is why he sent Bryn away 3 months later. That is why he never started watching my mouth for her name. That is why from that night forward, I had built the rake. I had planted the lie in every corner of the palace. I had let the maids gossip. I had let the guards laugh. I had let 7 kingdoms believe I could not keep a woman in my bed for longer than a season. I had built a wall to protect her. I had built it so well that it kept her out of my arms. And now, inside the wall of my own useless body, I could hear her 3 feet away, telling my steward to fetch water. She did not know. She still did not know. The ballroom clock chimed the hour. I counted the strokes. 11, 12 hours, Madame Odelia had said. Noon tomorrow. That gave the woman I loved 13 hours to figure out that the woman I loved was her. She was not going to figure it out, but because I had spent 7 years teaching her not to. They carried me upstairs on a table. I know because I heard the tabletop creak. I heard 6 men grunt in unison. I heard my valet Alden bark at them to lift with their knees, not their backs, as if I were a wine barrel and not a king. I heard Alara at the front of the procession, moving people out of the way with the tone of a woman who had discovered, in the last 20 minutes, that she could give orders and be obeyed. She was going to be terrifying by morning. I loved that too. They laid me on my own bed. The mattress I had known for 26 years. The mattress my mother had died in, which was a thought I did not want. So I pushed it away, and pushing it away worked. Because the mind is a strange muscle even when the body is not answering. The candles came in next. I could tell by the way the light behind my eyelids changed color. Warmer, closer. Then the smell of tallow and rosewater and Alden's cedar soap, and behind all of it, faint as a rumor, Elara Lavender. She washed her hair with lavender. Had done for years. I had memorized the smell the first summer I noticed she had stopped being a child. Somebody arranged my hands on my chest. Because of course they did. Because that is what you do to a king when you think he might not wake. You pose him like a statue on his own tomb. Elara did not arrange my hands. Elara was pacing. I heard her boots, back and forth. 4 paces one way, 4 paces back. Wood floor, old floor, my grandfather's floor. How much time? Madame Odelia's voice. Dry as a bone since he drank. 50 minutes, perhaps less. So we have 11 hours, and a little more. I am not going to count for you, girl, because it will not help you. 11 hours? Yes, silence. Boots. Pacing, then Elara again, queed her now. Not for the room. For herself, then we kiss him, which was when the entire night turned into a farce, because Master Wynne was still sniffling in the corner. And Master Wynne, God bless the man, had a clipboard. Master Wynne always had a clipboard. Master Wynne had been born, I believe, with a small clipboard in one hand and a quill in the other. Wynne cleared his throat. Miss Whitmore, if we are to attempt this, we must attempt it. Systematically. There are 118 unmarried noblewomen currently in this castle, not including the 11 princesses, not including the widowed baronesses, whom I am unsure how to categorize, given His Majesty's reputation. Yes, Miss Whitmore. You want me to make a list. I have already begun the list. Of course he had. Inside my body, in the dark, I felt something I had not expected. I felt embarrassment. Deep, red, boy of 15 embarrassment. Because a Q was forming to kiss me. A Q. On my own bed. Being written down by my own steward. On a clipboard. Elara did not say anything for a long moment. When she did, her voice was different. Fine. Bring them, one at a time. Cheek only. I mean it, Wynne. Cheek only. Nobody puts a mouth on him. I do not care what the potion says. Cheek, which was jealousy so naked and so clear that if I could have moved my face, I would have smiled so wide my whole plot would have unraveled in one motion. Except my face still would not move. So the smile went inward, and it sat there like a coal. She was jealous. She had been jealous for years. I knew that. I had counted on that. It was one of the 2 threads I had held onto, the other being that she was too proud to ever let me see it. She was letting me see it now. She just did not know I was watching. The princesses came. Wynne brought them in one at a time, according to his clipboard, and he pronounced each of their names as if he were introducing them at court, which it was. Except the court, this time, was one unconscious king, and a room full of servants pretending to be furniture. The first princess was from the Western Isles. Blonde. Still. She smelled of the same violet perfume she had worn in the ballroom. Her hand touched my face. I did not feel it, but I heard her breath catch. I heard her whisper, "Please." I heard her lips touch my cheek. Nothing. The second princess wept before she kissed me. I did not know why. I did not know her. The third princess counted to 3, under her breath, like a swimmer about to jump into cold water. The fourth was Isabella of somewhere I could not remember. She tried briefly to move from my mouth, and Elara's voice cracked across the room like a whip. Cheek, Isabella, cheek. Do you not understand English? Isabella of somewhere kissed my cheek and left. By the 10th princess, I had stopped counting. By the 20th, Elara was no longer telling anyone where to put their mouth. She had gone quiet. Which was worse than the jealousy. The jealousy at least meant she was fighting for me. By the 40th, I heard her leave the room. I heard the door open. I heard the door close. I heard Wynne's clipboard flutter as she brushed past him. Come back, I thought. Elara, come back. You are missing your own answer. She did not come back for a long time. Alden stayed. I could hear him breathing near the head of the bed. Alden had been my valet since I was 20. Alden knew things about me that no man alive knew. Alden had been the one who, 3 years ago, when I fell drunk at my father's funeral and cried into a chair, had picked me up and put me to bed and never mentioned it again to another human being. Alden's voice, quiet near my ear. "Sire, if you can hear me, we are trying. She is trying. Do not give up." I loved Alden then. I loved him with the wet, undignified love of a man who cannot answer the friend at his bedside. The 41st princess kissed my cheek. Nothing. The 52nd. Nothing. By the 70th, the room was starting to smell of perfume the way a garden smells after too many roses. Cloying. Suffocating. I wanted air. By the 80th, I heard Alara come back. She had been crying. I could hear it in the shape of her breathing. She was trying to hide it. She was doing a bad job. She stood by the door for a long time. She did not come to the bed. What nobody in that room understood, and what I could not tell them, was that every noblewoman's mouth on my skin was a small, precise blade being drawn across the heart of the one woman I would have opened a vein for. I had built this. I had made this bed. I had let 100 women want to kiss me so that no one would guess about the only one I wanted to kiss me back. And now she stood in the doorway of my own bedroom and listened to my steward call out the names of my supposed conquests, one by one. The 10th princess. The 20th. The 70th. The 100th. She had done this to herself as much as I had. She had spent 7 years scowling and snapping, and pretending not to notice, because pretending not to notice was the only thing she had. Now that wall was going to cost me my life, and I could not tell her. Around the 95th princess, Alara finally moved. She crossed the room. She did not stop at the bed. She crossed it. She went to the little table where my carafe of water sat. She poured a glass. She drank it. She poured another. She drank that too. Then she turned around and she said the thing that I had been dreading since she was 17 years old. "Win. Send a rider to the eastern estate. Fetch Bryn." Silence. Alden's breath went sharp beside my ear, which Win's quill made no sound, which meant he had frozen. "Miss Whitmore, do it, Miss Whitmore." "Are you?" I said. "Do it, Master Win." Bryn, who had been dismissed from the palace 7 years ago. Bryn, whom my father had reassigned to the eastern estate 2 days after he had cornered me in his study. Bryn, whom the entire palace, servants and lords alike, had believed for 7 years to be the only real love of my life. Bryn, who was, in fact, a kitchen maid I had once paid a full year's wages to walk in the gardens with me twice a week where my father's men could see us. Bryn, my mistake. Bryn, my alibi. Alara had sent for Bryn. Alara believed the rumor she had helped me build. Alara believed I loved someone else, and she was going to bring that someone else here to save my life because she was Alara, and Alara would rather cut her own heart out than let me die. Do you know what nobody in that room saw? Nobody in that room saw the moment a woman decided to walk her own beloved into another woman's arms because she thought that was the only way to keep him alive. I saw it. I heard it. I had no eyes to weep with, and inside my chest, a river was rising anyway. Bryn arrived at the 4th hour before dawn. I know because the clock had chimed. Once, then again, then again. Then finally, 8 hours left. That was Odelia's arithmetic. She had said it out loud twice. 8 hours from 4 in the morning to noon. Alara had not left the bedroom since she had sent the rider. I had come to know her breathing the way a blind man knows the layout of his own house. In, out, a pause. In, out, a pause. When she was calm, the pause was small. When she was afraid, the pause was longer. In the small hours after midnight, the pause had grown long enough to teach me how afraid she was. Bryn came through the door. I could not see her, but I could hear her boots. Muddy, country boots. And her voice, which had aged in 7 years, gone lower, warmer, they said. They said the king was, Bryn, Alara, come here. What is? Come to the bed. Pause. Bryn had not moved, Alara. What is wrong with him? He was poisoned. It is a love potion. Only true love breaks it. Come here. Another pause. Longer. And in that pause, I understood something I had not understood before. Bryn was frightened, not for me. She was frightened for herself. Because Bryn had spent 7 years in the eastern estate, telling herself She was the woman the king had once loved, and she had walked into this bedroom expecting to prove it. And she was going to fail, and everyone in the room was about to see her fail. Alara did not know. Alara was standing there begging her, Bryn, please. There is no time, Alara. I do not think this will, Bryn. Please. Bryn came to the bed. I heard her breathing above me. Quick, shallow. She smelled of the road and of the smoke of an inn fire. She kissed my mouth. Nothing. She kissed my mouth again. Longer nothing. She sat back. And she said, and I will hear this until my last honest hour on earth. I never loved him. He never loved me. I am sorry, Alara. I was hired. The room went so still I could hear the candles. Alara made a small sound. Not a word, just a sound. Like something struck. Hired 7 years ago. He paid me to walk in the gardens with him, to let his father see, to let the servants gossip. He said he had to protect a girl. He said he had to make his father believe there was a girl he was going to marry, so that his father would what? Would not know who the real girl was. Silence. Nobody in the room breathed. Then Wynne, quietly, from the corner, said, oh dear. Then Alden, quietly from the corner, said, oh, nobody in the room, including me, was strong enough to say the thing next. Except Alara. Then who is she? Bryn did not answer. Because Bryn did not know. I had never told Bryn. I had paid Bryn to be a smokescreen, not a witness. Alara asked the question as again. Very quietly, very close to Bryn's face. Bryn. Who is the girl? I do not know. You do not know. He never said. He only said. He said, she does not know. And she must not know. Because if she knows, the wrong people will know. The wrong people. His father. Then after his enemies. He said, if the wrong people found out who he loved, she would be dead within a month. He said it was the only way to keep her safe. I would like to tell you, I heard the sound of my own coffin closing when Bryn said those words in Alara's presence. I would like to tell you that. Because it would be simpler. The truth is what I heard was Alara sitting down, right there, on the floor, beside the bed, beside me, the rustle of her skirt, the small thud of her weight going down, her breath going out, all at once in a long thin sound that I had heard once before in my life. I had heard it on the night her grandmother died. I had been 18. She had been 16. I had come to her because I did not know what else to do, and I had sat on the stone step outside the healer's hut until dawn, and she had made that sound then, that same sound, the sound of a girl who has just understood something she cannot afford to understand. She was making it again now, beside me. Because of me, I could not touch her. I could not speak to her. I could only listen to her, sit down beside my bed, and understand that everything I had spent 7 years building had been built about her. And I had not once told her. She whispered. Very small. Not for anyone but herself. Or maybe for me. I could not tell. You idiot. You beautiful idiot. Why did you not just tell me? I would have. If I could have. Because you would have died, my love. That is why. Because my father would have had you killed. Because the ambassadors would have marked you. Because a king cannot love without giving the world a hostage. And I could not, would not, ever hand them you. I could not tell her. The clock struck 5, downstairs. The palace was awake now, and it was not the palace it had been the night before. I could hear it through the floor, boots, doors, shouting. The kind of controlled panic that a captain of the guard imposes when his king has been down for 6 hours. And the rumors have started to move faster than the horses. Captain Godfrey came in without knocking. Miss Whitmore. Not now, Miss Whitmore, now. Something in his voice made her stand. I heard her skirt lift off the wood. Godfrey did not come in for small news. Godfrey had been my father's man before mine, and Godfrey did not raise his voice for anything smaller than a fire in the granary. Talk. The Weston ambassador, Draven, he has been in the West Wing since midnight. Meeting. With 4 men in Weston livery, and with Lady Beatrix's uncle. Meeting. About what to do with the throne. Should His Majesty not wake, which was treason, which was, in the plain Ravenmoor law that my great-grandfather had put down in stone, capital treason. And Godfrey would have had them on his sword an hour ago, if Godfrey had not been a man who understood that arresting a foreign ambassador in his own castle while his king lay poisoned was going to start a war. Alara understood too. I heard her understand in one breath. In, out, pause, long pause, then a decision. Bring Draven here, miss, bring him now, and bring me one witness from that meeting. I do not care which. Pick the one who looks most likely to save his own neck, Miss Whitmore. On whose authority? Silence, then Alara. Quite clearly, quite calmly, said the thing I would remember for 1,000 years, if I lived to have 1,000 more, on the authority of the woman who is going to be sitting on that throne when the king wakes up. Godfrey did not answer. Godfrey did not have to answer. Godfrey went to get Draven, which was the moment, if I have to put it somewhere, that Alara Whitmore stopped being a housemaid and started being a queen. Not because a king had promised her a crown. He had not. He was asleep. But because in a room full of terrified men, she had chosen to stand up. And the room had let her. Draven came in with the smell of good soap on him. He had bathed. He had changed his shirt. He had prepared for this meeting the way he prepared for every meeting. And if I had not been listening for it, I would not have caught the tiny catch in his breath when he saw where Alara was standing. Beside my bed. Not near it. Beside it. Hand on the coverlet. Close enough to have been mine. She had positioned herself on purpose. She had understood in the last 6 hours more about power than most of my council understood in a lifetime. Miss Whitmore, Lord Ambassador, you wish to see me? I wish to arrest you. But I am told that would be complicated. So I wish to see you instead. Draven did not laugh. Draven was too good for that. Draven inclined his head. A courtesy. Not a bow. May I ask what I am accused of? Conspiracy. Regicide. 2 counts. Possibly 3. My steward has a clipboard. We can add to it. These are large words. They are exactly the right size for what you did. Silence. Then Draven. And I could hear the man begin to move on to ground he had prepared, said the thing he had come here to say. Miss Whitmore. Let us be plain. The king is dying. Your healer has said as much. In 7 hours, he will not wake. When he does not wake, my kingdom will be prepared to prevent chaos in Ravenmoor. Princess Margaery has arrived at the northern border. She is prepared to enter the palace and take her rightful place as consort. Should the king revive between now and then, she is willing to accept his hand in marriage as the price of her love breaking the curse. This is a generous offer. It saves your king. It saves your kingdom. Take it. There it was, the whole trap. I had suspected it in the ballroom. I had known it when I heard Godfrey's voice an hour ago. Now laid out in Draven's clean voice, in my own bedroom, with my body still under this curse, it was clear. Beatrix had not been the plan. Beatrix had been the delivery mechanism. The plan was the crown of Weston on my sleeping mouth. If Alara took the offer, I would wake. I would be married to Margaery. Weston would have Ravenmoor by marriage. The rumor of my rakishness would be redeemed by a true love's kiss that had actually been political theater. And Alara would go back to scrubbing the floor. And she would know, forever, that she had walked me into that marriage. That was the plan. That was the trap Draven had built. I could not speak. I could not move. I could not tell her. Alara did not answer for a long time. When she did, her voice was smaller than I had ever heard it. How do I know your princess loves him? She does not need to love him. She needs to be willing to save him. There is a difference. The potion, Miss Whitmore, requires only love in the one giving the kiss. Not love in the one who kissed. She loves him then. She is willing to say she does. It comes to the same thing. It does not. For the purposes of the potion, it does. Alara was quiet again. Do you know what a man hears when he is trapped inside his own body, and the woman he loves is standing 3 feet away, being offered a choice between his life and his heart? He hears his own heartbeat, because it is the only thing he can hear. I heard mine. Slow, steady, cursed. Then I heard Alden, which was the last thing I expected, Miss Whitmore. May I speak, Alden? Now is not, Miss Whitmore. Please. Alara did not answer, which was permission. Alden crossed the room. I heard his boots. I heard him carry something. Something wooden, small. He set it down on the bedside table, and my ear was 2 feet from that table, and I heard the little sigh of old hinges. I knew that sigh. I knew that box. Every muscle in me that could still panic began to panic. The box, Alden. Not the box, not now. Not in front of Draven. I had given Alden that box when I was 20. I had given it to him and I had said, Alden, if anything happens to me, if I die, if I am taken, if I am ever separated from you for more than a full moon, I want you to burn this box. Do not read what is in it. Do not open it. Burn it. Promise me. Alden had promised. Alden was, apparently, a lying valet. I heard the lid come off. I heard Alara take a breath. I heard her voice go very small again. What is? It is his box, miss. What is in it, miss? It is not my place. But there is not much time, Alden. Please. Look. Miss. She looked. I know she did because I heard the little rustle of her leaning in. And I heard the little sound she made when she saw what was on top, the comb. My grandmother's comb. The one Alara's grandmother had used to braid her hair on Sunday mornings before she went to the market. The one Alara had thought was lost the winter her grandmother died. I had taken it 2 nights after the funeral. I had gone into the healer's hut alone. I had taken it off the little shelf by the bed. I had put it in this box. I had never told her. I heard her fingers on it. I heard her breath break. Cedric. Just my name. Cedric. Just the second time. She was digging deeper into the box now. I could hear the sound of paper. I could hear the sound of the little folded portrait Alden must have put on top of the letters. Not the one I had painted of her at 17. She would not have survived that one at that moment. The other one. The little charcoal I had done of her at 14. Sitting on the fountain wall. I had never shown that to a living soul. Alden had known where it was for 6 years. I had, apparently, always known that someday somebody was going to have to open this box. I had, apparently, always been afraid it would be me. Alara was crying now. Not loud, not the way girls cry in books. The way people cry when they have understood a thing they cannot afford to have understood. Small. Wet. In her throat, he kept the comb. He kept the comb. Miss, he drew me. He drew you many times, miss. That is the earliest. There are letters. He never sent them, miss. They are addressed to you, miss, to me. She sat down again, on the floor. Beside the bed. Beside me, Draven, who was still standing in the doorway, said, very quietly, and for once with something almost like fears, Miss Whitmore. My offer stands. But it has a clock. 7 hours. Alara did not answer him. Alara said, into the coverlet. Very close to my hand, you idiot. Which is a bad quote. Which is not a queenly quote. Which was not something she should have said with a foreign ambassador at the door. Which was. And this is why I loved her, exactly the right thing. Because a queenly quote would not have saved me. A queenly quote would have signed the treaty with Weston. A queenly quote would have handed Marguerite my hand at the altar and Alara my heart in a jar. You idiot was the only sentence that stood any chance of getting us both out of this room alive. She got up. She wiped her face. I heard her wipe her face. She turned to Draven. Get out of my king's bedroom, lord. Ambassador, miss now. Godfrey, show him out. He is not to leave the palace. He is not to send any messages. Nobody in Weston colors moves without you knowing where they are. Am I clear, miss? Am I clear, captain? Yes. Miss Draven did not argue. Draven had lost the room. Draven had watched a housemaid open a box on his king's bedside table and become, in the space of 30 seconds, something he could not out-negotiate. He inclined his head. The courtesy again. Not the bow. And he left. Godfrey followed. Alden stayed. Wynne stayed. Because Wynne had, at some point in the last 2 hours, stopped being the little steward with the clipboard and started being like something like a father to the woman who once to a woman who had once been his most difficult housemaid. He stood in the corner and said nothing, and I loved him for that. Alara turned back to the bed. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, and I felt the words on my skin because she was that close, Cedric. I do not know if you can hear me. Odelia says maybe. She says sometimes. I can hear you, I thought. God, my love, I can hear every breath you take. I have been hearing them for 6 hours. If you can hear me, then hear this. I am going to be angry with you when you wake up. I am going to be so angry with you. I am going to be angry with you for a year. Maybe 2. You should prepare yourself. Yes, my love. Anything, but I need you to wake up first, so that I can be angry with you. Do you understand? Yes. Alden says I should kiss you. I could not breathe. Which was funny, because I had not been breathing my own breath for 6 hours. So it was not that. It was something older than breath. It was the animal underneath the breath. Alden says I should have kissed you an hour after the ballroom. He is very smart, Alden. I did not know he was so smart. I am going to give him a raise when I am. She stopped. When you wake up, which was as close as she could come. To saying it, I understood. She was afraid. Because if she kissed me and I did not wake, then the box on the table was a lie, or my love was not enough, or her love was not enough, or something else was true that she was not going to survive being true. As long as she did not kiss me, she could still hope. The moment her mouth touched mine and I did not wake, the fairy tale would die. I had spent 7 years teaching her that fear. I would have given my crown to unteach it in one breath. I could not. She leaned closer. I felt her breath on my mouth, not lavender now. Salt. She had been crying too long. I am going to try, she whispered, because I have to. Because the clock is going. Because I love you. There, I said it. I said it out loud in a room. Are you happy? Yes, my love. I am the happiest man in this room. I am the happiest man in this castle. I am the happiest man in 7 kingdoms. Please, please. She did not kiss me. Somebody kicked the door open. Because of course somebody did. Because the world has never once, in the whole of my life, let me have a moment. Marjorie, Princess Marjorie of Weston. In the doorway. Traveling cloak still wet with dawn rain. Blonde hair pinned up. Eyes very tired. Draven had lied. Marjorie was not at the northern border. Marjorie was here. 2 Weston guards behind her. Steel out, and behind them, sword out. Blood on his mouth from a fresh split lip. Captain Godfrey. Saying the calmest thing I ever heard him say, Miss Whitmore. Get behind me. The clock, somewhere far below in the great hall, chimed 6. Elora Whitmore did not get behind Captain Godfrey. Elora Whitmore stepped, once, in front of my bed. 2 Weston guards, steel drawn. In my bedroom, which was technically an act of war. Which was technically exactly what Draven had wanted. Because if Godfrey killed a Weston guard on Ravenmoor stone tonight, then Weston had a casus belli in the morning. And if Godfrey did not kill a Weston guard, then Weston had a princess on her way to my bed and a curse only she could break. Either way, Draven walked out of this palace with something. Draven had built a beautiful trap. Alara took it apart with her hands. Captain Godfrey. Weapons down, miss. Down, Captain. All of you. Put the swords down. Godfrey. Please. He did not lower his blade, which was Godfrey. Godfrey had been my father's man before mine, and Godfrey had once broken his own arm rather than let go of a sword before he had been ordered to. Alara understood. Alara did not argue. Alara said the only thing that was going to work, Godfrey. If you draw blood in this room, Draven wins. He wins. He has been waiting for it for months. Do not give him the war. Weapons, down, silence, long, long, long than a small, tired sound. A sword going back into a sheath, then 2 more. Weston steel. They followed his lead, because that is how a room works. The oldest man with a weapon decides. Godfrey had just decided that a housemaid outranked him tonight, and Godfrey was not wrong. Princess Marjorie of Weston stood in my doorway with rain in her hair, and she did not look like a woman who had come to seize a throne. She looked like a woman who had not slept in 3 days. Her cloak was cheap wool, not court wool, cheap, and her boots were riding boots, practical, and her hands were shaking. And she stood with her weight all on her left foot, the way a woman stands when her right foot has been in a stirrup for 18 hours. She had ridden here, herself, without escort. She had ridden through the rain. Alara noticed. Alara noticed everything. Alara took one look at Marjorie's boots and her hands and the way she was breathing, and Alara did the last thing anyone in that room expected. Alara said softly, "Somebody get the princess a chair," which broke Marjorie. I heard it because I had been listening to breathing for 6 hours now, and I could tell you when a person's throat closed and when a person's throat opened. Marjorie's throat closed. "I do not need a chair. You are about to fall over, Alden." "Chair, I do not, princess." "Sit down." Marjorie sat down. Because when a woman who has ridden through the rain for a whole day is told to sit down by another woman who is not afraid of her, she sits down. It is one of the oldest facts in the world. Alden pulled the chair over. Marjorie sat. She did not sit like a princess. She sat like a person. Alara did not move away from the bed. Alara stayed exactly where she was, one hand on the coverlet, one hand loose at her side, her chin up, and she did the thing that was, when I finally understood it, the moment I stopped being able to pretend to myself that I might survive marrying anyone else. Alara said, "Princess Marjorie, tell me, honestly, do you want to be married to my king?" Silence. Marjorie took a long, wet breath. "Miss Whitmore, answer the question." "I have been told to say yes. That is not what I asked. I have been told to say yes, for as long as I have known my own name. I have been told, in fact, that saying yes to the King of Ravenmoor was the only useful thing I would ever do with my life. I have been told this by my father, and my uncles, and my brothers, and by Lord Draven, who I hate. Miss Whitmore, do I want to be married to your king? Yes. That is what I asked. No." The word landed on the wood floor like a coin dropped into a bowl. "No, I do not. I have never met him. I do not know him. I do not love him. I have been coached to love him, and I have been rehearsed to love him. And I was going to walk in here and kiss him and hope that the potion could not tell the difference between rehearsal and love. That was my plan. My father's plan. Draven's plan. But no, I do not want to be married to your king. I do not want to be married to any king. I want, Miss Whitmore. I want to go home. But home is not a place I am allowed to want anymore. Home is a doorway I ride through, so my father can put me on the arm of some other kingdom's throne." Nobody in that room moved, because Marjorie of Weston, who had been sold to us as a hungry princess with a taste for power, had walked in wet and cold and told the truth in front of her own guards. Which was the moment the trap in the doorway broke. Which was the moment I understood. Draven had been running her the way he had run Beatrix, and that Marjorie had been running out on him the whole way here. She had not come to seize a throne. She had come to escape one. Alara understood too. Alara understood in the space of one blink. Because Alara had, for 7 years, been the woman in the room nobody looked at. And she knew what a woman in the room nobody looked at looks like. Alara knelt. She knelt in front of a princess. In front of a bed with an unconscious king in it. In front of 2 foreign guards. In front of her own captain of the guard. She took Marjorie, shaking hands in her own. "Then we get you home. But first we save my king. Will you help me?" Marjorie looked at her. Marjorie said, "How?" Alara said, "Tell me everything Draven has done, everything. Names, places, coins. I want the whole map," which was queen work, which was in one motion the biggest political victory Ravenmoor had won in a decade. Because Marjorie of Weston, sitting in that chair, told my captain of the guard, in the presence of my valet and my steward, and the woman I had loved since she was 17, exactly how her father had funded Draven, exactly which lords of Ravenmoor had been sent gold across the border in the last 4 months, and exactly what the price on my head had been. The price was 800 crowns, which was insulting, which I filed for later. Wynne wrote it all down. Wynne's quill was the only sound in the room for a solid 10 minutes. Wynne wrote fast when it mattered. Wynne had been born, I now understood, exactly for a night like this. By the time Marjorie was finished, Godfrey did not need my order, and Godfrey did not need Elarara's. Godfrey turned to his lieutenant, and Godfrey said, calmly, and I will remember the shape of his voice, "Take the ambassador. Take him quietly. Take him now. And take the 3 names in Ravenmoor livery she gave us. And take Lady Beatrix's uncle. Alive, all of them, alive. I want a trial. I want the country watching." The lieutenant went. I heard boots leave. Godfrey stayed. Godfrey went to Margary's chair, and Godfrey knelt on one knee, which for Godfrey was a full-body poem. And Godfrey said, "Princess, you have my protection. On Ravenmoor bread and Ravenmoor salt. As long as I am alive," Marjorie cried, which she had not done, I think, in years. Then Alara turned to the bed. The clock struck 11. 11. Morning. Bright sun on the windows I could not see. 1 hour left on Odelia's arithmetic. 1 hour, which meant Alara had spent the entire night saving a kingdom, and she had not yet saved the man in the bed. She looked at me. I could not see her look. I could feel it. I could feel her look the way you can feel weather change before a storm arrives. Alden, quiet, beside me, said, "Miss Whitmore, I know, miss. I know, Alden. You have to. I know." She sat down on the edge of the bed. She was very still. She was so still. She was the kind of still a girl is when she has spent all night being brave for other people. And the bravery has finally run out. And there is nothing left to be brave with except herself. I heard her hands go to her face, then away, then to the coverlet, then to my hand, her hand on my hand, her fingers on my fingers. 7 years, without her hand on my hand. And I could not squeeze back. "Cedric, yes, Cedric. Listen to me. Yes, I was so angry at you. All night, I was so angry. Because you did not tell me. Because you let me watch you. Because you let all those women. Because I sat outside your door for a whole hour once, when I was 19. On the winter your father sent Bryn away. Because I thought if I sat there long enough you would come out and say something. Anything. And you did not. You never did. And I was so angry. Yes. I know. I felt you sit there. I sat inside the door. I put my hand on the wood on the other side. I could smooth you through the crack. But now I open a box on your table, and there is my grandmother's comb. And you have been sleeping with my grandmother's comb next to your bed for 7 years. And Cedric, you painted me, Cedric. You painted me on a fountain wall when I was 14 years old. Yes, my love, yes. So I am going to try. I am going to try, and if it does not work, I do not know what I am going to do. Because I have already put my heart in your box. I do not have a second one to put anywhere else. She leaned down. Her mouth was above mine. Her breath was on my mouth. She was crying. I could taste the salt of it before her lips touched me. Alden turned his face to the wall, because Alden was the finest man in 7 kingdoms, and because Alden knew when a room was too holy for looking. Wynne turned his face too. Godfrey did not. Godfrey had lost the right to look away by professional oath. Marjorie watched. I do not fault her. Marjorie had earned it. Alara Whitmore lowered her mouth to mine, and she kissed me. And she said, into my mouth, in a whisper, only I heard. And only because we were breath to breath, wake up. Wake up, wake up, because I love you. Cedric, wake up. The dark box of my body cracked open like an egg. I felt my hand first, which was strange, because I had been listening to my hand for 8 hours, and my hand had been a stranger to me. Now it was mine. Fingers. Palm. The line of the coverlet under it. Her fingers on top of mine. Small. Warm. I felt my mouth, which was on hers. I kissed her back, just a little. Just enough, because I had almost no strength yet, because the potion was going out of me the way a tide goes out of a shallow bay, slow, taking pieces with it. Alara made a sound. The sound was not a word. The sound was a whole 7 years crashing. She pulled back. She was staring at me. I opened my eyes. The room was gold with morning. The room was full of people. Her face was 6 inches from my face. Her eyes were red. Her hair had come all the way down. Her nose was pink from the crying. She had never been more beautiful. I would not have traded her for a mountain of gold, I said, and my voice was gravel, and it was the first thing I had said in 8 hours. You called me Cedric. In the ballroom. In front of 200 people, she said, immediately. without a breath in between. "Do not you dare start," I said. "I am starting. I am absolutely starting." "You called me Cedric. You were dying." "I was mostly dying." "You were entirely dying. You called me Cedric." "You have not called me Cedric in 7 years." "You are impossible." "I am the king. I do not care." "You are impossible," Godfrey coughed, loudly, which was his version of "Your Majesty." "There is a princess in your chair, and an ambassador being arrested in your corridor. And a curse just broke in your bed. Kindly attend to matters of state." I attended to matters of state, but not before I lifted her hand off the coverlet and pressed it against my mouth, and held it there for the length of one long, uneven breath. Because she had come for me, because in the end, she had come. I got up too fast. I had to sit down again. Alden and Godfrey had me under the arms. Alara had my hand. My legs were still remembering they were legs. My mouth remembered before the rest of me did, which was a mercy, because I had a great deal to say and only a little strength to say it with. I said, and it came out steadier than I expected. "Godfrey. Draven, in irons, sire, Ravenmoor lords, 3 names. Being fetched now, 2 more we suspect. Awaiting your word, Beatrix, alive, sire. In the small chamber, under guard, weeping, Marguerite stood up. Because she was still a princess, and princesses stand when a king says their name. She was pale. I looked at her. I made her meet my eyes as "You told my captain everything you know." "Yes, your majesty." "You told him under no threat." "Yes." "You told him because you wanted to." A long pause. "Then, yes. Then you have my protection. On the bread and salt of my house. As long as I am alive." "Do you understand what that means?" She did. "Because in Ravenmoor law, bread and salt is not a courtesy. Bread and salt is a treaty. A king who gives bread and salt to a foreign princess is a king who has just taken her out of her father's reach for the rest of her life." Marjorie's face did a strange thing. It tried to smile. It tried to weep. It settled on something in between that was really neither one. I said, more gently, because she was very tired and very young and had done a very brave thing. "Sit down, cousin. Alden will bring you tea. We will talk about what happens next when the sun is higher. Godfrey, the council chamber. In 1 hour. Bring my seal, sire. When? The scribes. All of them. I want 6 copies of a proclamation, ready by noon. I will dictate, sire, Odilia. Am I safe to stand for an hour? You are safe to stand for 10 minutes. Then you sit down, or I will sit you down myself. Do we understand each other, boy? Boy?" She had not called me boy in 4 years, not since the week my father died. I said, quiet, and only she heard, "Yes, madam." She patted my hand. Once. Rough. Then she left. Then Godfrey and I got to work. The next hour was the least romantic hour of my life. And it was also the hour in which I made Alara Whitmore my queen without asking her a single question about it. Because I gave orders. I gave orders sitting on the edge of my own bed with my hand around her hand. I gave orders about arrests. I gave orders about seals. I gave orders about the border. I gave orders about the granary. I gave orders about a dispatch to be written and sent by rider at dawn to every province. And every order I gave, I turned my head half an inch and I looked at Alara first. And I said, in the little pause between the order and the officer, "Do you agree?" Every time. Do you agree? Do you agree? Wynne caught it before Alara did. I saw Wynne's quill hesitate above the parchment on the 3rd time. Then, on the 5th, Wynne did the thing Wynne had been born to do. He looked up, he met my eye, and he said, very carefully, "Sire, do I record Miss Whitmore's assent as?" As what? I did not look away from Alara. As the consent of the crown, Wynne's quill did not hesitate again. Alara understood a moment later. Her hand went very still in mine, she whispered. "And only I heard it, Cedric. You cannot do this in front of. I am doing it in front of them because I am not doing it in secret anymore. I have done secret. Secretly killed me. Secret nearly killed you. We are not doing secret, but I am. You are the woman who ran the kingdom for 8 hours. You are the woman who arrested the Wested's conspiracy. You are the woman who broke the curse, and you are also the woman I have loved since I was 19, and I am done. Elara, I am done. Silence in the room. Because you cannot say a thing like that in the presence of your captain of the guard, and your steward, and your valet and a foreign princess, and expect the room to go on breathing the way it was before. Elara did not answer, but she did not take her hand away, which was more than a yes. Then Odelia came back, saw me still upright, and put me back in bed with the flat of her hand on my chest, and a word I did not repeat in front of the princess. I laughed. It hurt. I laughed anyway. Godfrey took the orders and left. Wynne took the orders and left. Alden brought Marjorie to the guest wing with 2 of my own guards on her door. Elara stayed. She sat on the chair beside my bed, and she looked at me for a long time, and she did not say anything. Neither did I, because we had said everything already. And also because we had said nothing, and also because there was a whole 7 years between us that was not going to be filled up by talking. We just looked. She looked at me the way a person looks at a house they thought had burned down, only to come around the corner and find it still standing. I looked at her the way a man looks at the woman who has just walked him back out of his own grave. The sun climbed. The clock struck 12. Nothing happened, which was the loudest nothing I have ever heard. Because at 12 I was supposed to be dead, and instead I was tired. And she was there. She reached out. She put her hand on my forehead, the way her grandmother had once put mine on hers. Sleep, Cedric. I have been asleep for 8 hours. Not sleep. This is not sleep. Real sleep. Close your eyes. If I close my eyes, I will be here. I closed my eyes. I slept for 2 hours. When I woke, she was still there. Her hand was still on my forehead. She had not moved it once. I made her come with me to the balcony. Not the throne room. Not yet. The throne room could wait an hour. The country could wait an hour. I had spent 8 hours in the dark, and I wanted a sunset, and I wanted her in it, because the sun had turned. It was late afternoon now. The light was the color of honey on the stones. September was ending. The winds smelled of turning leaves. The balcony faced east. The orchards below. The river beyond. A thin, cold, late afternoon. Ravenmoor before harvest. The mist coming off the water in a slow gold sheet. She stood at the rail. I stood behind her. I did not touch her. I did not have the right yet. Not without asking. And I had not asked. I said, I need to tell you something. I know. I need to tell you all of it. I know. I need to tell you before you say yes to me and not after. Because if you say yes to me on a story I have not finished telling you, I will spend the rest of my life waiting for the day you find out the rest of it and stop being able to say, yes. She turned, her back to the setting sun, her face in the shadow. Then tell me, all of it. Now, so I told her. I told her about the night I turned 19. I told her about the stable yard, about my father kitching us, about the look on his face, about the study, about the desk, about the words a common girl and the words she will vanish. I told her about the promise I had made not to test him. I told her about Bryn. I told her how much I had paid Bryn to the coin. I told her about the first noblewoman I had asked to walk in the gardens with me, knowing full well I would not marry her. I told her the second. I told her the third. I told her how many nights I had come back to my rooms and stood in front of the mirror and tried to remember what my own face looked like without the rake stitched onto it. I told her about the fountain painting. I told her about the letters. All of them. Every letter I had never sent. Every letter I had written to her at midnight in the 6 months after my father died, when I could have told her, and did not, because I had built the wall so well by then that I did not know how to come out. I told her that I had once, on the night her grandmother died, stood outside the healer's hut and put my hand on the door, and stood there for 2 hours in the cold, and had not gone in, because I had been afraid that if I sat with her all night the way I wanted to, I would kiss her at dawn, and if I kissed her at dawn, my father's men would see her leaving my quarters, and if my father's men saw her leaving my quarters, she would be dead by autumn. She said quietly, "So you went home." And I sat on that step alone. I went home, and I sat on my own step. on the other side of the wall, until the sun came up. That is where I was. She did not answer for a long time. The mist on the river was going pink. The sun was low. My country was, for the first time in a decade, secure. My valet was in my rooms. My steward was in the corridor. My captain was in the courtyard. The princess of the kingdom that had tried to kill me was drinking tea by my fire. The ambassador who had tried to kill me was in a cell. I had not lost anything but 8 hours. I had almost lost everything. It had been closer than I could tell her yet. She turned to face me. Cedric, Elara, you are an idiot. Yes, you are a very intelligent idiot. Yes, you have wasted 7 years of my life. Yes, and your own. Yes, and I love you. I have loved you since I was 17 years old. And my grandmother put your hand on my forehead when I had a fever, and you left it there all night. I had not known she remembered that. I had not known she had been awake for that. You were awake. I was awake. You never said. You never asked. We looked at each other in a way that we had not looked at each other since the fountain, which was when I said, and I did not mean to say it in a way that would ever be quoted anywhere, and I said it anyway because I was so tired and so free and so alive that the whole thing simply fell out of me. Then let us not waste one more evening. Marry me in front of the country this month. I will not ask again because I do not need to ask again. Say yes and come inside with me. Say no and I will still hand you the seal of the crown when I sit the throne tomorrow because you have earned it. But say yes. She did not say yes right away because she was Elara. Because Elara did not say yes right away to anyone, ever. Because Elara had spent 7 years being right about everything, and she was not going to spoil her record on the last question. She said, Cedric, yes, if I say yes, I am going to run this kingdom with you, not behind you. With you, yes. If I say yes, I am going to give orders to your captain of the guard, and you are not going to countermand me in public. Yes. If I say yes, I am going to make Master Wynne very happy and give him a bigger clipboard. I love Master Wynne. If I say yes, I am also going to be so angry with you for at least a year. I have already been warned about the year. 2 years. 2 years. Cedric, yes, yes, which was the last quiet word between us for a long time. Because after she said it, I put my hand on her face for the first time in 7 years. And she rose up on her toes and kissed me on my own balcony in my own evening above my own river. And the country below us did not know yet, but the country would know within the hour. Because I had already drafted the proclamation. And Wynne had already sent the riders. And Godfrey was already reading the trial charges to the traitors in the courtyard. The country would know by morning. The country, when it knew, would cheer. Because a country loves nothing so much as a king who has finally told the truth. 1 month later, not a long month, not a short one. A month with a coronation confirmation. A month with a wedding. A month with 3 trials, 1 of which ended in exile, and 2 of which ended in the loss of certain family lands to the crown. A month with a princess of Weston moving into the east wing of the palace as a guest of the house, with her own budget and her own guard. And, we would learn later, her own quiet correspondence with a young widowed lord of the northern coast that would become, in time, the second great love story anyone in Ravenmoor talked about that winter. A month with Elara learning where the seal of the crown was kept. A month with Elara learning that Master Wynne had, in fact, always kept 2 clipboards, and that the second one had been waiting for her. A month with me learning what it is like to be a man who no longer has to lie. I did not know how much it would weigh until it was gone. The lie, the rake, the rumors I had planted with my own 2 hands. I had carried them for 7 years, and I had not known I was carrying them until the morning I put them down. The wedding was small. On purpose. In the eastern garden, beside a certain fountain with a cracked stone rim and a statue of a queen nobody remembered. Elara wore her grandmother's comb in her hair. I had returned it to her the morning after the balcony, in the same wooden box, and she had held the box for a long time without opening it, and then she had opened it, And then she had put the comb in her hair and had not taken it out since. Marjorie of Weston stood among the guests, not in the front, not in the back, somewhere in the middle, which was where she wanted to be. She wore Ravenmoor colors. She had asked quietly if she might. I had said quietly, of course. She wept during the vows, so did Alden, so did Wynne. So, at one point, did Godfrey, though he denied it later, and none of us corrected him. The country did cheer. The country cheered so loudly that Godfrey had to put twice the usual guard on the palace gates, not because anyone was hostile, but because so many farmers had walked in from the villages to see the housemaid queen with their own eyes. They brought her things: a basket of apples, a basket of pears, a carved wooden spoon from a widow in the valley, a single lace collar sewn by a girl who had lost her mother the same winter. Alara had lost her grandmother. Alara kept every one of them. She kept the wooden spoon in the drawer beside our bed. She still uses it. She says it is the best spoon in the palace, which it is not, but she is the queen. And if the queen says a wooden spoon is the best spoon in the palace, then the palace agrees. I stood on the balcony again. Same balcony. Same river. Colder now. October. Alara came out behind me. She had a shawl on. She was still not fond of dressing like a queen. She dressed like a housemaid who had been given a very nice shawl. It was, quite possibly, the most attractive way anyone had ever dressed in this palace. She wrapped her arms around me from behind. She said, "Any regrets, Cedric?" I said, "Only one." She said, "What?" I said, "I still miss watching you throw wine on my feet in front of 200 people." She said, "That can be arranged. Frequently. For the rest of your life." I laughed, and she laughed, and the river went by. She rested her chin on my shoulder. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, softer, in the voice she used when she was not being the queen and was just being Alara, "Cedric, 7 years is a long time. It is. I want you to know something. Anything. I would have kissed you at the fountain when we were children, if you had asked. I want you to know that so that you carry it with you. So that you never wonder." I did not answer at first, because a man cannot answer a sentence like that with speech. A man can only answer a sentence like that by turning around slowly and gathering the woman who said it into his arms and holding her there until the sun goes the rest of the way down and over the river. Which is what I did. The clock in the great hall behind us struck the hour. It was 6 in the evening. Ravenmoor was quiet. The harvest was in. The council was fed. The traitors were sentenced. The princess was writing her letters. The valet was polishing my boots for the morning. The steward was updating his second clipboard. And a maid I had loved since I was 19 was standing in the circle of my arms on my balcony above my river. And she was wearing her grandmother's comb. And she was not going anywhere. That was the whole story. That was the whole 7 years, undone in a single autumn. I did not know that evening how many years I would have with her after that one. Nobody knows. That is the whole point of what I am about to say to you. But I knew this. I knew that whatever years I had left, I was not going to waste one more evening of them being anyone but the man who had held her at the rail of that balcony. And I was not going to waste one more evening of them pretending I did not love her, and I was not going to waste one more evening of them building a wall between us out of what other people might think, or what old ghosts might say, or what my dead father might have wanted. The wall was down. The house was open. The woman was inside. That was the whole story. That was every letter I never sent. That was every candle I ever wasted alone. And if you are still with me, if you have stayed with me all the way to this evening, then I want to spend the last few minutes of this story not with a king and a maid, but with you, because you are the reason the story mattered. Before I let you go this evening, before you close whatever window you are watching this in, I want to sit with you for a moment. Because I have been telling this story for a while now, and stories like this are not just stories. Stories like this are, if we are honest, mirrors. I told you at the beginning that people called me a rake, that I built the rake with my own 2 hands, that I did it to protect a woman I loved and could not admit I loved, that the wall I built to keep her safe was very nearly the wall that killed us both. I want you to think about that for a moment, because I do not think this story is really about a curse in a ballroom. And I do not think it is really about a princess from a foreign kingdom, or a poisoned goblet, or a sleeping king. I think it is about the thing that men do. And I say men because I am one and because I know the shape of it in myself. We are taught from the time we can walk that strength means silence, that love is safer if it is unspoken, that the mark of a strong man is a closed mouth and a straight back and a face that gives nothing away. There is a truth in that. There is dignity in restraint. There is danger in wearing a heart on a sleeve where any passing thief can cut it off. But there is a difference between strength and silence. And I did not know the difference until I lay in a bed for 8 hours listening to the woman I loved decide whether to walk me into another woman's arms because she thought that was what my silence meant. If you are a man and you have watched 2 hours of my story tonight, I want to ask you something. Somewhere in your life, there is a person, maybe a wife of 40 years, maybe a son you have not spoken to since spring. Maybe a friend from a long time ago you have never told what he meant to you. Maybe a father who is old now, and who never once heard from your mouth the sentence he was quietly waiting to hear. If tomorrow came without you in it, would that person know? Would they know exactly? In words, not in guesses, not in a will, not in a story somebody tells at your service. In words, from your own mouth, while you were still able to say them. I want to tell you 3 things I learned inside that dark box of my own body. 3 things a man does not learn until he has almost lost the chance to say the thing he was going to say tomorrow. The first thing is this. Silence is not the same as strength. Silence in a strong man can look like restraint. In a strong man, silence can look like patience, but silence at the end of a long enough road is only silence. It does not protect anyone. It does not honor anyone. It does not deepen the love. It only puts a wall between you and the one person you built the wall for. And when the wall gets high enough, they cannot see over it anymore. And neither can you. And the years pass. And you tell yourself the wall is love, but it is not love. It is fear in the clothes of love. The second thing is this. The world will misunderstand you. Let it. My whole court called me a rake for 7 years and I let them, because I thought I was protecting somebody. But the person I loved most in the world was inside that court, and she believed the rumor too. Because I made her, because a wall does not know the difference between an enemy and a beloved. It only knows to keep everyone out. If you spend your life building your reputation for the strangers, understand this. The person who loves you is watching, and they will believe you. And you will end up alone with a reputation that fits nobody, not even you. The third thing is this. Time is not what you think it is. I nearly died in that ballroom, without the woman I loved knowing that I loved her. I had, at that moment, spent 7 years of a lifetime that was not guaranteed to me. Nobody's is. There is a chair somewhere in your life that will one day be empty. Maybe it is your wife's chair. Maybe it is your mother's. Maybe it is yours in someone else's kitchen. That chair does not tell you which evening will be the last one. That is the whole trick of it. You do not know. You only know that there will be a last one, and after it there will not be another. If you have someone, tell them, not with a card, not with a check, not with an inheritance, with your voice, with your face across a table, with your hand on their shoulder on a Sunday afternoon. Say the thing. Do not do what I did. Do not spend 7 years building a wall to protect somebody and then almost die before you tell them. The wall was for them. I am one of the lucky ones. A woman I did not deserve knelt at my bed and kissed my mouth and pulled me out of the dark. That happens in stories. It does not always happen in life. In life, sometimes the wall stays up. In life, sometimes the person you were going to tell tomorrow is not there tomorrow. In life, sometimes The last thing you said to them was something small, something ordinary, something you would not have chosen if you had known. Choose now. Have you ever loved somebody in silence? For longer than you should have? Have I ever thought? I will say it tomorrow, and then found out that tomorrow does not always come at the hour you ordered it. Have you ever built a wall you meant as love and watched it become distance instead? Tell me in the comments below. Write the name if you want. Write only the year if you do not. Write only a single word. I read them. I read everyone. And I promise you the person on the other side of your comment is somebody else who has been waiting to hear that they are not the only one who has been carrying it. If this story reached you tonight, if any part of it sat down in your chest and stayed there for a moment, subscribe. Because the next story I have to tell you is already waiting, and I would like you in the room for it. See me well, and in the morning. Say the thing.